Hey guys, Swim here, and welcome to my deck guide video for my new spell Dorfs deck. On day 1 of the new patch, this deck is very powerful. Right off the bat, it's been performing very well for me. I've climbed to, in this case, something like top 100 with it so far, and it's only going to go up from here. Anyone who has told me that they've been playing the deck all day and has reported back has said it has a ridiculous win rate. This deck, basically, with the advent of Elven Mercenaries, it really takes Dorfs to the next level, or, many people have been playing the game since closed beta might comment that Elven Mercenaries were a thing before, and it's been what Dwarfs have been missing for the entire open beta. Now, before I go into card choice details, make sure to check out the Gwent DB guide in the description, unless you came from there, because that is going to have budget variant for this deck. It's going to have a crafting order, it's going to have card replacements, it's going to have a full written guide for anyone who wants to check that out. Now, you might see Elven Mercenaries. These are obviously going to be the new addition to this Dwarf deck, although it obviously does use a bunch of new things as well. This is an incredible tool here. Basically, the ability to play this into a Thunderbolt Potion is huge. It gives you 2 points on top of a buff body for Thunderbolt Potion. These buff bodies are also what allows you to run cards like Commander's Horn to even greater effect, because it just makes it much more reliable that you're going to be able to get full value off. You obviously use Mahakam Defenders, which this deck revolves around. These Defenders and this Yarpen, basically, the 4 of these resilient units, buffing them up very, very big with Hawker Healers, with Thunderbolt Potions, and with your additional peripheral cards such as Dwarven Mercenaries, Elven Mercenaries into spells, Ithlinne into spells, Zoltan Shive. Basically, buff these big, the opponent won't have a way to deal with that much raw value, and you should, in most cases, be able to force a 2-round scenario. Sometimes your game plan revolves around giving the opponent round 1 after buffing 3 things to like 30 strength, carrying them over into the next round, Ithlinning for double adrenaline rush, and winning round 3 with your huge double carryover units. I can talk into a lot of detail about each component of this list. For example, Nature's Gift giving you access to Commander's Horn most importantly, but also giving you Alzur's Double Cross or Marching Orders depending on what you need at the time. Marching Orders rolling between Barclay Elves, your Elven Mercenaries, all 4 of which are very powerful cards. And Alzur's Double Cross hitting first and foremost Yarp and Zigrin. Dwarven Mercenary after that, which is a powerful one-of. This card is a one-of basically because you generally want to pull the Yarpen onto that melee row, so you typically only need 1 Dwarven Mercenary. And after that, the Alzur's Double Cross will be hitting your Mahakam Defender. Your Ithlinne, of course, sealing this all together. You run 4 gold spells here. You usually double cast Commander's Horn for huge value, but you can in some cases double cast Alzur's Double Cross if you have drawn both of your Dwarven Mercenary and Zartan, to be able to pull more Mahakam Defenders at 7 strength. In certain cases, Marching Orders as well. Ithlinne is a very versatile card here. But basically, the whole deck comes together very well. There's a lot of options. All of your cards, this deck represents so many choices. Just being able to Nature's Gift out whatever you want, Ithlinne out whatever you want, Ithlinne out to double cast whatever you want. You'd be surprised how often you use Ithlinne for something that's not just a Thunderbolt Potion. I use Ithlinne for Rally quite often. I use Ithlinne for Adrenaline Rush quite often. I use Ithlinne for Immune Base quite often. But basically, this list represents much more of a high degree of choices than normal Dwarf lists allow. Anyway, enough about this list. Let's take it into some games and see how it performs. Okay, we get into our first game here, and we find ourselves playing against Windruner, playing Unseen Elder. We actually haven't seen that much consumed today. It'd be interesting to see how this turns out. So the first thing you'll note about this mulligan, luckily we didn't draw Saskia, although we just kick her anyway. Basically, this mulligan is very, very simple. Get rid of Thunderbolt Potion first, get rid of Saskia second, Thunderbolt Potion for the blacklist value, of course. Not get rid of all copies of Thunderbolt Potion, but get rid of the first Thunderbolt Potion, get rid of Saskia, and then get rid of any additional bronze spells. You want to find your bronze spells with Elven Mercenary and nothing else. So get rid of First Light. So now we have Barclay Elves representing our guaranteed to last Mahakam Defender. We end up drawing all of our Dwarfs here. We actually might have too many tutors. We'll have to see how this plays out. we will have Ithlinne being able to reuse Commander's Horn in this matchup for sure. Given our hand state, we're not going to need her for Alzur's Double Cross or Marching Orders or anything. But we ended up drawing into all of our Dwarfs here, which is a bit of a rare thing. Okay, and now of course we don't have a way of controlling that, but we don't ultimately need to. Let's go ahead and play out the Barclay here, playing out the last dwarf from our deck, this last Mahakam Defender. This deck runs, of course, 6 dwarfs, including Barclay. It's Barclay, Yarpen, 1 of Dwarven Mercenary, and 3 Mahakam Defenders. And we just start dumping out our hand. In certain cases, the order of play is relatively straightforward for this deck, for the most part. You just play your proactive units, start buffing them up, and just watch as your opponent just doesn't really have a way to deal with the amount of power that you end up with. Now, it is a little unfortunate that we don't have any of our gold tools here. We would absolutely love an Igni in this matchup. An Igni would go a really long way. Also, Ithlinne would be kind of cute to play. I would absolutely Ithlinne early, and I would do it to block off that Vran. That Vran eating these eggs represents a really massive amount of points for him that I'm not comfortable letting him have. Let's go ahead and play out this other defender, though. That's fine. Ultimately, you don't need this much resilience. In fact, you kind of don't want this much resilience, to be quite honest. You don't really care about having 4 resilient units. The reason that this deck runs 4 resilient units is, of course, because if the opponent kills 1 or 2, you're going to need to have 1 or 2 remaining. You do not need more than 1 or 2 resilient units to be able to survive the opponent's stuff to be able to win the game with this deck. Not at all. A lot of people might say that this deck is, at a first glance, looks very vulnerable to, hard removal like Igni, Marjo, Succubus, etc. But at the same time, it ends up being very resilient towards those because all you need to do is keep 1 defender alive in general, and you can often win the game off of just 1 defender. So we have Marching Orders pulling out our Elven Mercenary, Alzur's Double Cross pulling out our Hawker Healer in this case. Let's go ahead and just keep on keeping on. Pretty standard opener. Out of instinct, we play the Dwarven Mercenary on the left side. A good habit to get into, play your resilient units on the right side. That way, when you Dwarven Mercenary them between rows, they will always stack together and you will always be able to get, Commander's Horn or Thunderbolt Potion or what have you on those units. It's just a good habit to start getting into. Let's go ahead and Commander's Horn here. Why not? Buffing up 4 resilient units. Incredible value Commander's Horn. If you see what that Commander's Horn just did, if you count these resilient units as double their value, because of course they're being carried over into the next round, that Commander's Horn just represented 36 value. And I'm about to therefore get a 48-point Ithlinne by playing Ithlinne, pulling out Saskia, and Commander's Horning for that same 36 value again. And there's that Igni. As I said before, it doesn't matter that he does that. It doesn't matter whatsoever. There's nothing he can do against the amount of carryover that this deck can generate. Okay, so let's see if we can win here if we push this. Ithlinne represents 32 points into this turn, into this round. We can easily win here if we push this. Okay, let's go ahead and pull out this Elven Mercenary. Let's go ahead and pull out a Thunderbolt Potion. In certain matchups, I would have chosen Immune Boost, actually. If there's something that the opponent can do that doesn't go through armor, although very few things go through armor at this time, anything the opponent can do that, gets a little bit slowed down by Immune Boost based on their faction. For example, the Northern Realms Ballistas, which some people run. I will definitely favor using the Immune Boost earlier there, because you need to use it proactively. But in this case, we'd like to just buff these up. Basically, the idea behind this deck is to push round 1 hard. You push round 1 very hard, and even if you lose round 1, with this deck, you often have Adrenaline Rush or Ithlinne to be able to recycle your carryover into a round 3, which they just won't have answers for. Now let's see if I can threaten beating him here. Now his Necker is going to grow a little bit passively. In fact, assuming that Vran goes off 2 more times the Necker, so we treat him as 97 points. We have 44 of our own. We need 53 points to be able to threaten to tie him here. This represents 30. Yeah, we can easily do 53 points. No problema. So we stay in this round. We go deeper. And we're always just going to be threatening more points. So we play another Merc. We play another Thunderbolt Potion, or in this case Immune Boost, because we don't have the option for Thunderbolt Potion, but that's fine. The one of Immune Boost is really quite nice. It represents 3 less value sometimes, but it has the potential for much more than that, and we would absolutely run a 4th Thunderbolt Potion if I want to. The Immune Boost is kind of like our 4th Thunderbolt Potion, but having it as an option is really good against certain decks. The armor is pretty great against weather, and some people are still running weather. Weather is definitely not dead, far from it. So he knows what a Dwarf deck represents. He knows that if he loses this round, he will lose to the carryover in round 2. He absolutely knows that. This makes him think that he has no choice but to pass, and he's right. Sorry, but to keep playing. He can't pass, is what I mean. And he's right. He can't. Okay, there's that pass. Let's go ahead and see about this, winning this round, forcing him out.
Hold the lines. Humans have no place in Broccolon.
And of course, we reuse our Commander's Horn, slamming a ridiculous amount of value here. And our last play, Hawker Healer actually takes this, right? We don't even have to use Merc. So let's just go ahead and get this Hawker Healer out.
We ought to help one or the other.
He's going to get 1 more point off this Varan Warrior. Not representing enough. Of course, we have to put the Hawker Healer here. If we put it between these two, then it buffs all of our Dwarfs to the same strength threshold, which is not something we want. We go 2 cards down for this, but as you can see, we have established here a ridiculous amount of carryover. Now, the Adrenaline... Ooh. And he just realized he could not win against that. The Adrenaline Rush, I was going to say, is very crucial for this deck. Because basically, you have to understand, if you lose round 1, your game plan is to basically Adrenaline Rush your units, recycling them into round 3, where you will be able to win by doing that. Or sometimes, even if you win round 1, Adrenaline Rushing a unit can prove better than Thunderbolting or anything like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and go next game. Okay, so we get into our second game here. Looks like it's a Nilfgaard matchup. Okay, so we have in this hand, we have Saskia, we have Thunderbolt Potion. So you always want to kick the Thunderbolt Potion first. It's always going to be your first kick here. It's just supreme blacklist value. Now we have the Saskia, and we've got the Immune Boost and the Adrenaline Rush. Again, with this deck, you're kicking Saskia and you're kicking spells. You're going for blacklist value off those spells. So now we have First Light, Immune Boost, and Adrenaline Rush, all of which represent one-ofs. The one we want from hand the least is probably Adrenaline Rush. We'd like to be able to pull into this with Ithlinne to double cast it, or Elven Mercenary if we want it. So we'll just go ahead and do it like that. We have the marching orders here, pulling out. It rolls between our last Elven Merc and our Barclay Elves. We've got Ithlinne being able to reuse it if we don't get what we want. Now he is using the Elba Pikeman deck. That is a deck that I was using earlier today, and it's really quite good. Now having no proactive plays is really unfortunate here. We would really love to have Mahakam Defenders, Yarp and Ziggurin, Alzur's Double Cross into Yarp and Ziggurin, Nature's Gift into Alzur's Double Cross into Yarp and Ziggurin. We have none of those options. So we're actually going to have to open with Barclay, which represents a slightly awkward possibility if we roll into an Elven Mercenary right off the bat. That can be kind of bad. So it might be better to just rally. We're going to go ahead and do that. We'll rally. This will most likely pull a Defender. This is the safer play between these two. This really awkward hand, actually. This deck has pretty consistent hands. You need to be able to find some kind of proactive play, but this is fine. A little bit of RNG required to be able to get a proactive play out, but now we have it.
Oh, I sense trouble.
So now we have the marching orders. Hopefully we pull the Barclay. If we pull the Merc, that's not great, but we at least have 2 units to buff with the Thunderbolt. Making sure to place the Merc on the left side. When it comes to this deck, just as a habit, put your resilient units on the right side. This will basically make them easier to be able to stack with the Dwarven Mercenaries. For example, if you put a Dwarven Mercenary here, pull a Yarpen like that, it always goes to the right side, and you want your resilient units together. So it's just a good habit to get into. Resilient, right side.
I live to serve.
Okay, perfect. And now you can see part of the value out of Ithlinne. Now, again, you want to use this on Commander's Turn most of the time, but in this case, you really, really need to get more units out. You need to get more resilient targets out. It is an absolute necessity. So we use Marching Orders, we pull Barclay Els here, and hopefully it's a Yarpen, but a Mahakam Defender would be fine as well. If it was Yarpen, we would of course use our one of Dwarven Mercenary to align their rows so that we can buff them together. Okay, so he goes ahead and places a Rot Tosser on the melee row. Now, we don't have Zoltan Shiva. We would love to have Zoltan Shiva here because it just allows us to scoop these all out of the melee row and not have to deal with the Rot Tosser whatsoever. That being said, we'll just eat it with an Elven Mercenary. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. So we can just open by playing a Hawker Healer out here, buffing these 2 Dwarfs. So his Alba Pikeman didn't go off, so his 3rd one's in his hand. So Nature's Gift gives us Elzer's Double Cross for the last Mahakam Defender. It's pretty good. We got the Yarpen, it's a little bit late. Now we are still this is interesting. Do we sacrifice the healer? We want to be able to buff more resilient units, which means the Yarpen first is better. Now, I did want to play the Elven Mercenary to eat it and gain 2 more points instead of having the 4 die, but in this case, playing the Yarpen first allows us to Nature's Gift into Alzer's Double Cross into our Mahakam Defender, completing the trio of units on the melee row. Dwarven Mercenary makes that a quadruple, and then of course that allows us to buff at least 3 units with the remaining Thunderbolt Potions from these Elven Mercenaries, the double Thunderbolt Potion from the Ithlinne, and additionally the even the immune boost over here. Okay, so we can go ahead and do this now. This is just the Nature's Gift into Alzer's Double Cross into Mahakam Defender play. In matchups where you are kind of, you know, wary of certain things damaging you, like for example, I don't know, war longships, anything that deals damage, Philippa Eilhart, etc. You do want to play this immune boost kind of earlier, but in this case, there's nothing that damages me, so I'm definitely not afraid of it or anything like that. Here we can go ahead and play this Dwarven Mercenary out. Or stacking these is going to be beneficial. Now, you'll note that this aligns them to Igni. It's a bit of a risk here, but at the same time, he could go 1 card down, and he's still not able to pass against this. The deck uses a kind of similar principle as the old, basically... Oh, he's removing Adrenaline Rush from 2 units. So, you'll note we can actually add those back with Ithlinne. You'll also note that this aligns all of them to Igni, which is fine, because if he had Igni, surely he would have taken it there instead of using Ox. He does not have Igni. So we can play the Hawker Healer here. He can eat that pretty well. We don't want to use the Thunderbolt Potion yet, simply because we don't have units aligned. So we go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and play the Thunderbolt Potion. Or the Hawker Healer to block it. Let's go ahead and put that right there. So, the Ox is a little bit annoying. It can force out the Adrenaline Rush earlier rather than later, which is not something we want. But at the same time, it's not a big deal. Like, yeah, he was able to remove 2 huge resilient targets, but we still have more. So, it can't really do enough against this deck. We're very sad that we had to use Ithlinne for something other than Commander's Horn. We would really, really love to just have the sheer power of being able to horn so many units like that. Okay, let's go ahead and get this immune boost out here. We don't mind Ithlinning after he passes, because of course, if he does pass, we are able to just get a ridiculous amount of carryover that he won't really have a good way of beating. Now, the Igni will allow us to push deeper for this round. We can get a pretty easy 13-point Igni, killing off this Albrick here. We'd like to get more than that. We know his deck. We know he runs Alchemist in these Daler and Foot Soldiers, and we know at the same time he knows our decks. He definitely is aware that Igni is a threat here, and he does not want to play a second Alchemist into us. That being said, he has no way of protecting the Alchemist from being able to line up to the Igni, which is going to represent a pretty great Igni for us. Wow, there is an early Villain Trettenmirth being dropped there. That's a pretty big deal. Okay. And we're always just going to push this deeper. We don't mind. Let's go ahead and command this one here. We've got 2 more turns. He obviously can't pass right now. If he passes right now, we Ithlinne into Adrenaline Rush, our Yarpin and our Defender, basically unlocking them, as it were. Although, of course, unlocking them doesn't actually return resilience in the same way that re-Adrenaline Rushing them does. Now we're saving the Igni because, of course, he is sitting on at very, very least 1 Alchemist in that hand. That deck runs 3 Alchemists. He's sitting on 1 or 2 Alchemists in that hand, and he's terrified to play them for fear of that Igni coming down. We're basically just going to have to play this Merc out for a Thunderbolt Potion right here. And Villain Trettenmirth only scorches once. It's going to represent a large value swing, killing off this Yarpin. But at the same time, we have more units to Adrenaline Rush. We don't really mind. We got this Mercenary as well. Okay, so he pings down the Yarpin, which is, of course, enabling his Villain Trettenmirth to be able to scorch one of our true resilient units, which is fine by us. Again, you'll see this deck is trying to control me. This deck is trying to keep my options down, and this deck is not really able to do so in a meaningful way. All we have to do is outvalue him. We outvalue him here and we win. So we have a double Thunderbolt Potion representing boosting that up to 23. So we go ahead and use that here. We have enough carryover to basically guarantee the game. So we go ahead and Ithlinne here. Thunderbolt Potion. We're going to go ahead and buff this up once. We're going to go ahead and buff this up twice. Villain Trettenmirth is going to go ahead and scorch this 23 Strength Defender off, leaving us with these 2. And we are totally fine with that. We will still be able to force out this round. We still have the... I mean, he has no real way to stay in this round. His deck will always be super vulnerable to the Igni. Absolutely always. You just decline that effect? That's super strange. Okay. The Merc for the Adrenaline Rush loses us a bit of our win condition. If we pass, he'll take it with an Alchemist. Are we all in here? Is this our pass? He takes it with Alchemist. He will always have a T-board, presumably, and he has that decent Siri dash as well. Man, this is weird. He can win this round if he wants to, but at the same time, forcing out his T-board is really powerful. Is the correct play to Igni here? Whoa, this is super weird. The correct play actually might be Igni. Let's go ahead and get that Igni. So this is going to free him up from playing Alchemist. We really, really didn't want to have to play Igni here, but at the same time, we can't really use our Adrenaline Rush here, because he will be winning this round if he wants to. We'll make him commit that last card. So his deck runs T-Bor, which means there is a 1 in 4 chance that he just drew T-Bor and needs to commit his T-Bor to win this round. That is really, really bad for him. He does not want to do that. And of course, what you'll see is we'll draw into our Adrenaline Rush. Okay, drew a Foot Soldier. That's fine. So we could have won that game if we had played the Merc, actually, just off the fact that he drew the Foot Soldiers, but we should still be fine. It depends on his draws. That's really awkward, actually. Man. It's a bit of a guessing game at that point, depending on whether he drew... If he drew T-Bor, we lose the game by playing Merc, or anything that beats the Merc. If he drew Foot Soldiers, Mercing becomes the correct option, and only then does Mercing become the correct option, which is super weird. course, we will have to adrenaline rush this. Man, that's really unfortunate. If we had a second adrenaline rush, we would win here. The 22 might not end up being enough. Now, we have 12 more points off the Zoltan, 2 more points off the Elven Merc in our hand. It's going to come down to a very tight game. He will have a Tibor to rival this. He should have a Siri dash. So he might win by like 1 point. It's going to be very close, but if he has Tibor and Siri dash, he should take it.
The storm is coming. Let's enjoy the weather while we still can.
That's kind of interesting. So it's going to force me to choose 3 units. And his Rattosser is in the Siege row, which means the Zoltan Shive in the Siege row means I have to remove the Cow Carcass as well. And it just kills the Merc anyway. So there's no point in buffing the Merc. Man. There's nowhere to play that I don't also drag the Cow Carcass. That's actually really unfortunate. Just because his Rattosser was on the wrong row. Or on the row where the Merc wasn't. Playing the Merc there was actually a mistake given that. So he should Tibor here. So it's no Tibor, it's a Leo actually. Okay, that'll do it. He's able to power me out here. Wow, very close game coming in there. If I had a second adrenaline rush, I take it. If I am correctly predicting the Daler and Foot Soldiers in the round 2, I win the game there as well. I guess that he had any of the 3 other cards in his deck other than the Foot Soldiers, but given the fact that he had the Foot Soldiers, I win that game if I drop that Merc instead of passing at the end of round 1. Very close game. Okay, we get into our next game here, where we see Bartek playing Full Test. Okay, as always, we open with Kick on the Thunderbolt Potion. We just want to get that blacklist value. No Saskia here, which means we go deeper on the bronzes. The mulligan of this deck is actually really straightforward. Open with the Kick on the Thunderbolt Potion. Go into these bronzes after kicking Saskia after that. Go ahead and get Adrenaline Rush out of this hand. No Saskia means basically we could kick this first light and risk getting Saskia, but honestly, we're pretty happy with this hand. Is there anything else we're fishing for? We don't have either Commanding Earth's Horn or Marching Orders, based on whatever we want to pull from Nature's Gift, but this is fine.
Crush those vermin!
Okay, so we know Barclay is going to guaranteed pull us a Mahakam Defender. Let's go ahead and play Yarpin out first. Now, the slight unfortunate thing here is that we're playing against Foltest, who, of course, has access to Death Mold. Oh, I might have expected to see a reinforcement into Death Mold there, but he's playing a deck with a high concentration of cards, so maybe he didn't draw into either. We can, of course, juke that with our Dwarven Mercenary, pulling this to the melee row, which is something that we ended up wanting to do anyway. He might play another R2's Adept here. Nope. So it looks like he might not have more Frosts. So let's simply go ahead and play Alzur's Double Cross. We would actually, if anything, maybe prefer playing Alzur's Double Cross before the Barclay Elves. Of course, both of them summon Mahakam Defenders, making sure to place them on the right side just as a good habit. Barclay Elves, of course, will be pulling the same thing. Barclay Elves and Alzur's Double Cross are just pulling Defenders here. Now, the Margarita is representing decent value there, but at the same time, kind of limited. I mean, he's still not really going to have a great way to deal with these Defenders. Does he run Igni in that list? That deck has a really hard time being able to fit Igni in. And the Barclay Elves will pull it at a higher strength threshold anyway, so it's going to buff this by 3, which offsets any chance at an Igni anyway. Okay, so this is obviously protected against our Igni, and he knows this deck runs Igni. We have the Ithlinne double casting Thunderbolt Potion if we want it. Rally here, possibly for a 3rd defender. Could rally after finding... Oh, we need the Commander's Horn. The Commander's Horn is imperative off of this, so we can't... We're locked out of Marching Orders here, basically. Okay. That means we open with Rally, right? Okay, let's go ahead and rally. mean, we're not scared of more weather. So we go ahead and put the Hawker Healer obviously right here, and buffing these 2 resilient units, and we just keep the buffs going.
You must sweat like a swine in that jacket.
So we get rid of the, he gets rid of his commando. Now, the interesting thing about this deck is that the strategy revolving around this field medic card used to be basically sending back these commandos, resetting to base strength, then pulling them out with 3 strength Reaver Scouts. But now that Reaver Scouts are 1 strength inherently, Foltest buffing them to 2, you can't do that anymore. So he loses a lot of value out of field medics. Field medics are not so great of a card anymore, unfortunately. So we just keep buffing these up. We don't actually mind that we saw an immune boost there instead of a Thunderbolt Potion. Obviously, the only choice where we don't see a Thunderbolt Potion is if we do see exactly just that, Adrenaline Rush and immune boost. Now, that is going to be very, very susceptible to our Igni. Right, it doesn't buff silvers anymore. Why doesn't it buff silvers? That's kind of sad for us. That's pretty funny. Okay, and we just keep on keeping on. We just buff and buff and buff. We have Nature's Gift into Commander Soren. We have Ithlinne into Commander Soren, and he just has no answer to that. None whatsoever. So we buff. Is it actually better playing a Thunderbolt Potion here? That's very strange. I mean, we don't need the Commander Soren here, but at the same time, it does put it in our graveyard, giving us access to the Ithlinne on it if we want it later. So let's go ahead and Commander Soren. That's fine. And as you'll see, going into the next round, our plan here is to now use Ithlinne on Adrenaline Rush, double casting it on both of these 2 defenders that we have. We've still got the Igni, which is still going to be pretty potent against his deck. Now we obviously need to get rid of the Saskia in this hand, because we haven't used Ithlinne yet. So let's get rid of the Saskia here. Don't mind drawing, look at that, Zoltan Shiva. That's pretty neat. So we can go ahead and do that. But before, let's start it off with a couple more buffs. Let's go ahead and get that Elven Mercenary out. Let's go ahead and get this Thunderbolt Potion out.
Aye, aye, sir.
Now, he is getting 2 of these Light Cavalries, meaning the 3rd one's in his hand, which of course doesn't do him much good. Kind of similar to that Frost that he just played. Because, of course, we just end up dragging them out of the row with Zoltan Shiva regardless. Representing a 14-point play, preserving my units from Frost at the same time as enabling my carryover to reach higher bounds. So let's go ahead and use this Ithlinne here. Let's go ahead and double cast Adrenaline Rush on my 2 units. Honestly, we could cast Thunderbolt Potion as well. It doesn't really end up mattering. He can Igni one of them. It doesn't really end up mattering. Again, Igniing one, it's only really going to do so much here. And we just keep on keeping on. So, unfortunately, he does have, well, we can actually, this is cute. So we can Nature's Gift into Marching Orders into our Hawker Healer. There's a lot of cute things you can do with this deck. Like I said, it has so many kind of options in terms of the different choices. Okay, and obviously we're going to ignore that. Just because, you know, you always thin so much, you always have access to most of your tools, you know. Because I didn't have the Marching Orders, and I didn't want to obviously ADC into the Defender, but I can still play the Nature's Gift into the Marching Orders, into the Healer, which is of course going to achieve better value than just buffing these with a Thunderbolt Potion or something. And there's a pretty standard 2-0. A good example of how this deck is still, even though you can counter it with hard removal, it is very, very resilient, oddly enough. He Ignis me. I don't care. He Margaritas me for the Yarpin. I don't care. Unless you're bringing like 5 of that kind of effect, at which point you're really, really, really weakening your deck. It's not really going to be enough to do enough to win against this deck. So, as you might be able to see, the deck is really quite formidable, and it is going to go through some iterations. Be sure, as I said at the beginning, to check out the Gwent guide, because I will be updating that with any tweaks that I have to the list, but unfortunately I can't update videos really, so this video is kind of frozen in time, but the Gwent guide will be updated with any tweaks that I happen to have making to this deck. That being said, I am very happy with this exact iteration of the list. Honestly, every card here has a pretty distinct purpose. I'm very happy with all of these card options, and this list is great. We're all going to be looking forward to seeing probably a pretty good amount of this list for the weeks to come. And it might not necessarily be the best list in the entire game. We'll have to see. It depends how the meta settles. That's always going to be super dependent. But this deck is really bringing Dwarfs back in fashion. Anyway, this has been my deck guide for Spell Dwarfs. Again, be sure to check out the Gwent DB guide, and I'll see you guys next time.